Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Underground Kings podcast. Today I'm joined by my friend Spencer. Spencer, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Appreciate you having me.
So we're just gonna jump right in. Give everybody a little bit of a backstory on kind of where you're from, what it is that you do, how you got into kind of the spaces that you're in right now, and we'll dig a little deeper after that.
I moved around a lot growing up. I was born in Wyoming, which might sound strange to a lot of people because you don't meet a lot of people from Wyoming. My dad played football. He played in the NFL, so it's a little different being raised in an athletic family. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I had 2 older brothers that played football as well. My sister played sports and did cheerleading. But so we moved from Wyoming to Tallahassee, Florida, where he worked at Florida State. Then he moved to Kansas State, so we lived in Kansas, and then we moved here when I was in high school. So by the time I moved here, I was pretty much an only child because everybody else moved out and they were old. I played football growing up. I played every sport, but I fell in love with football. So once I got to high school, I figured that's what I want to focus on, and I ended up going to Jacksonville State University. I actually walked on and had to earn a scholarship, which is another story for another day. But, I didn't really get a whole bunch of looks in high school. I was not the same size I am now. I was skinny and soaking wet. I couldn't even touch 200 pounds. Now I'm 245, but I played at 250. And they moved me from wide receiver to tight end. So I walked on there. It's an FCS school then. Now it's D1 this year, or FBS. But my senior year, we went to the national championship, and I was a captain. So going from walk-on to captain, a lot of it, which I know we'll dive into, had to do with my mental performance and finding out what mental performance was, which you could have all the talent in the world, but at the same time, if you don't have it mentally, right, pretty much you don't have it. And that pretty much solidified my passion to be a mental health advocate and want to help athletes moving forward. And so ever since I was done playing, which I got a chance to go try out with Indianapolis, got cut, and then from there tried Canadian. But after that, went back to school. I got my second master's degree in kinesiology. And my goal with that was to promote mental performance and be a mental performance coach and help athletes be the best every time they step into competition. And so I moved back home. I got a part-time job at a gym, which is now full-time. And now I run 2 of the facilities as far as operations and being a facility manager. On the side, I am almost done completing all my hours to get certified to be a certified mental performance consultant. And then I also work with Coastal Carolina men's soccer team right now, which they're about to go into season, and work with Coastal baseball pitchers as far as mental performance. So
It's a lot, man. Let's talk about kind of your early days with sports. So obviously sports has been a major part and continues to be in your life. But kind of what was your introduction to sports in your youth? Was this something that kind of your father was kind of like introducing you to different sports or things like that due to his career, or how did that play out?
yeah, as far back as I can remember, sports was just always came natural in our family. And I wasn't alive when my dad played football, so I didn't get to see him play, but everybody just talked about how good he was, and we were back in Wyoming where he went to school. So the only people I got to see play were my older brothers, and seeing them play and wanting to emulate what they did or emulate players that we saw play on Saturdays because we went to college football games, that's where I fell in love with it. And so ever since I can remember wanting to play football or being the best or being a running back and running the ball and scoring touchdowns, that's pretty much all we knew. And having 2 older brothers not treat you like a little brother but treat you as their equal, it kind of makes you have to be better because they're not going to take it easy on you as far as if you guys just even playing in the street or running in the yard, whatever you're doing. There's been plenty of times we've gotten into it, but at the end of the day, I attribute to my dad. He coached me in Pee Wee, and then my brothers as well, just wanting to be like them and look up to them. So everything as far as football came natural. I played baseball and everything too, but I didn't really love it as much.
Do you feel, when you're playing sports, do you feel more competitive towards others or towards yourself?
I guess it goes both ways. I mean, you want to be the best for you, but when you see other people out there and they have what you want, or they're good, and it'll either make your competition level rise or fall. And one thing that I preach now to the athletes that I work with is it's literally you versus your mind. So we always talk about a faceless opponent. And at the end of the day, it's about competing against yourself and then owning the result when it's all said and done, and then redirect and go back out there and do it. I used to catch myself a lot, not being able to be like I wasn't always a starter. So you start comparing yourself to the person sitting next to you that plays the same position, that has your spot. And instead of looking at him and pointing out what he has and what I don't have, it made me feel responsible and me having to own what I need to work on.
That makes sense. I definitely can resonate with that. You know, I was a bench warmer for a lot of years in different sports, but you know, it's like, rather than getting caught up in the animosity of it, like, I just found that more of the competitive side of it. It's like, well, he's got what I got. He's got what I want. And so I don't hate him for it, but
right.
I'll be damned if I don't go out and try and get it.
Yeah.
And I know I have to earn it. You have to earn that right. And speaking of which, like, talk to me about what it was like being a walk-on at, where was it you said you played?
Jacksonville State, yeah. It's in that, so it's like middle of nowhere, Alabama.
Okay.
It's not middle of nowhere. It's, if you go down I-20, it's before you get to Birmingham, it's probably about an hour 30 outside of Atlanta. So you'll see, there's just one exit. If you blink, you're going to miss it.
So what do you mean by, so you just, basically you went to school, you didn't have an academic scholarship or anything lined up?
I didn't have academic. I didn't have athletic scholarship. I was going to go either to Coastal and be comfortable and go with what I knew because I lived here, or go to UAB, which is in Birmingham. And then on the way back from Birmingham, my dad saw the exit. And then this is in the spring. So for football, everybody gets their off. You already have your offers in the fall. Then in football, in the spring for football, you commit. And by this time, this is the summer. I already graduated high school. No idea where I'm going to play football at. So there's no scholarships out there for anybody because all the good players already got picked up, right? So I'm just sitting there at home, and my dad said, let's take a trip to Jacksonville, Alabama, because he knew his old running back coach was the head coach. So his running back coach in college, which is 1980 whatever, like 83, I don't know, was the head coach then. And so my dad texted me, he's like, yeah, come on down. We don't have any scholarships, but if he wants to walk on, we could look at him and go from there. So we took a 14-hour trip, 7 hours there, 7 hours back in one day. Walked around the campus, walked around the field, and my dad said, this is where you're going to play football. I don't really have a choice. It was a 7-hour trip. We didn't go out there for nothing. That's what he's like, I didn't come out here for anything, so what do you think? I said, all right. So I went there, no scholarship, walked on, and if you're a walk-on, you're on scout team. You have basically no respect. Nobody knows who you are, so you have to earn your stripes. So basically just go out there and start making plays. And when you have no expectations from anybody as far as performing at a high level, and then you just go out there and start balling because there's no weight on your shoulders, it's the most unbelievable feeling, because then people start noticing the work that you put in, but you have to work for it. And sadly, my freshman year, I got knee surgery. So I just tore my meniscus, nothing crazy, but that was my first time getting knee surgery. So the rest of the season, I pretty much just sat out and then had to start from scratch all over again the next season. But it's always, a tough climb up the mountain. There's always a new mountain to climb, and that's how my career kind of went.
It's really interesting, your perspective on the advantage of playing as a walk-on. Because I've always heard of friends of mine who were college athletes or people that I know or, interviews I see on TV or online. I feel like the athletes are always talking about, the advantages to like having the athletic scholarship.
Right.
And I feel like that's probably what's in a lot of high schoolers' heads when they're coming up time to graduate. They're looking at that athletic scholarship as like their golden ticket type thing. But I never really thought about it in the way that you framed it up of going in as a walk-on. Like you didn't have this basically school's name or an athletic scholarship to prove yourself to. And you were able to focus more on just doing what you do best.
Right.
It's like you just had less pressure kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you're paying money. You're not guaranteed the spot. You're not guaranteed to travel or like even success in your career. So what you do with it is pretty much on you. Like my best friend too, my roommate, he walked on with me. He was ended up being my college roommate the whole time I was in college. Well, I got an extra year, but all throughout college. And then he came, earned a scholarship, one of the best linebackers there. I played offense, he played defense. All-conference player, all-American player. And we just started out as walk-ons, which is, at any level too, this is what I feel like high school kids or athletes get mixed up with. They always, if you're not going to like the Alabamas or LSUs, they feel like you're not going to be successful in your career. I've seen plenty of guys go to smaller schools. The competition's the same. Everybody wants it just as bad as the person at Georgia that won the national championship last year. You got to go out there and perform and work at it.
Do you think that there's advantages to going to a smaller school in that you're not kind of operating within the big school name where, you kind of like that name brand? It's more like you're building your own within a smaller school?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think if you're a good player, they'll find you no matter where you are, whatever level. I think the big difference between bigger schools and smaller schools, one is, of course, the competition is not going to be as good, but two is the resources. Like, you're not going to have the same, because I was in Alabama, right? At Jacksonville State, we didn't have the same resources as Auburn or University of Alabama with the facilities, the coaches, the weight room, the supplements they give you, everything. Like, you have so much backing and so much money going into the program. At smaller schools, you don't have that. So a lot of it's like you got to grind for what you want. But if you're talented, I've seen one of my former teammates, this is his 6th year playing for the Buffalo Bills. And he came from an FCS school. There's plenty of FCS players that have successful careers too. It's just they got to find you, so you have to perform at a high level no matter what.
I've got an interesting question for you. From the mental performance standpoint, what is your perspective from that light on a guy like David Goggins?
Like mine compared to David Goggins?
What's your perspective of what that man has been able to attain? Because obviously he's insane. The man's insane.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, is that like I want to understand the intricacies of what it is that man. Obviously, not many people have that answer.
Right.
But like, what would be your perspective or your thought process behind how someone is able to wire their brain that way?
Clearly, I read the book.
Yeah.
I listened to it, actually. I feel like listening to it was a lot better than reading it. But the discipline that he developed, one, it didn't happen overnight. And it wasn't easy to do because how many times did he fail? Over and over and over. But his discipline and his routine that he developed from being an overweight man to eventually being a Navy SEAL is him trusting the process of what he wanted. I'm not saying that he had certain goals, but he just strictly focused on the process and being disciplined in order to get where he wanted to go. And of course, that turned into him being a Navy SEAL, to being an ultra runner, to breaking records for the pull-ups. Like, the list goes on and on. But I feel like once he developed the discipline and the routine that he did, it pretty much just gave him momentum moving forward, which it's hard for any. I mean, I can go out there today and say, like, all right, speaking of which, Dennis was talking about the half marathon and try and get you to run.
Yeah.
But like, I could go out today and start training for the half marathon, and I could go run, 3 miles. Am I going to have the discipline to do that again? Right? I just feel like David Goggins was he was at a point in his life to where he was like, it's this or nothing. Sometimes you got to get to that, like he said, that dark place in order to realize what you want and go get it. I feel like that's what he did. Can I do that? I mean, I feel like anybody could, but you got to want it bad and develop that discipline.
How big of a role do you think when it comes to your mental performance and things? There's a lot of conversation about, positive thinking. Like, I hear you talking with players about, coming off the field and like keeping your head up, like thinking through the game, like having a healthy relationship with yourself and these things. But like, what about from a mental performance standpoint, especially as athletes at a high level, what role does like the dark side of that play as well? Because it's blatant to me that some of these guys that become, I mean, look at Conor McGregor, and like his come up story is insane.
Right.
Just some of these guys, these rags to riches stories kind of thing. But those guys, everybody's like, oh, well, I don't know how you had the discipline. It's like, oh, well, I didn't have a choice. And time and time again, I hear these guys saying that. And they're pushing their bodies to places that people don't think you can push your body to, because your mind's going to quit way before your body does.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what are your thoughts on being able to embrace, I guess, that hardship and that struggle side of it to fuel you while simultaneously having, I guess, more of the other, like the positivity? You mentioned this on that one podcast we recorded with Troy, actually.
Right.
You said, I can't remember exactly how you framed it up, but it was perfectly worded.
Like, talking about setbacks?
Talking about, I think you said it was something about, it's not, you can have like negativity fueling you in a positive direction.
Yeah. I mean, we all have negative things that happen to us. I feel like we all strive to attain some type of goal in our life. Nobody sits there in their right mind, and it's like, I'm going to be a failure at life, right? Everybody goes through something. So at some point, when you go through something hard, I feel like you have two choices, either to continue down that road or work towards something. So when it came to me and like playing football, like I clearly didn't start my career thinking that I was going to be a walk-on, or thinking I was going to have to work my way back up to the top after being at the top, throughout high school like everybody else was. So me not being a walk-on and not being able to start or perform, or not being All-American like all these other players are that I've been watching and I practice with, like I had a choice to make. And so I could either let that pain of feeling like I'm letting down my family, feeling like I'm letting myself down, feeling like I'm wasting my career, and this is it. Like this is going to be the rest of my life, saying that, I was a walk-on and I played college football. Or I could do something about it. And I feel like, Conor McGregor being a success story, him being like living at home with his parents, whatever age it was, like in his 20s, being bankrupt, however many times he was, not having any money. Like he did the one thing that he needed to do to be successful, but he did that day after day after day and trusted that process. Am I where I want to be now? No, because I have different goals now. Like that chapter is over. The fighting chapter may be over for Conor McGregor, just as an example. I mean, he's still a successful man. He's going to be successful because he knows how to work for things. But yeah, as far as like the bad side or the bad thoughts or bad things happening to you, it doesn't have to be positive, but what you do with it has to be productive in order for you to succeed and achieve what you want to in life. And I feel like it's not just football or sports in general. It's anybody that's going through something, which all of us are. And it just pisses me off to see. It pisses me off, but it's sad at the same time to see that people, they're just okay with like being mediocre, right? So I saw, no, this is crazy actually. I met with a soccer player today. I showed him a video from Nick Saban, of course, Alabama, but it said mediocre people don't like high achievers and high achievers don't like mediocre people because there's two different mindsets right there. Their buy-in is different than somebody who's not bought in.
Absolutely right. Do you think that it's high achievers' duty? I think a lot of them see it as their duty to try and pull other guys up. But the problem is they end up spending so much time trying to pull guys up when they could just be working with the guys that have already earned it, that have already paid the buy-in. And, they can create some really great opportunities at that table.
Right. Yeah, I'm working with this with soccer right now. There's some guys who are bought in and like the leaders, like the captains of the team. There's some guys who aren't bought in. They're still feeling their way around and they're not getting it yet. But at some point, if I'm bought in and I'm pulling you up, I have to stop trying to pull you up physically and mentally, like talking to you and trying to encourage you and let you figure it out on your own. Because if I can encourage you as much as you want to, but if you don't want it for yourself, you're not going to get up and go get it. And I can only control what I can control, which is my actions and my efforts. So hopefully my actions, by me controlling my actions and showing you, hey, this is the way, this is how you buy in, this is how you work, this is how you lead. If you see me doing that and you don't want to be a part of that, then I don't know what to tell you. But at some point, you have to figure it out for yourself and want it as bad as hopefully I want it. But you got to want it bad for yourself too.
Do you think a leader always has to want it more?
Leaders need some type of motivation too. Like, if you see yourself as a leader, like you are a leader, you have your own business, there's somebody that you look up to. Like, am I saying that you got to want it more than David Goggins? No. But
my feet hurt just thinking about that.
I mean, you got to want it it's just how bad do you want it? It's not about how bad, like, do I have it or do I want it more than the next person? It's like, do I want it bad enough to be able to achieve my goal or be successful or win the game or succeed in my business? Am I doing the right things? A lot of times we look at the outcome rather than the process. So instead of taking little steps to our big goals, we take big steps and attain a little goal, right? And it's just because we miss the details in the process. We're so in a hurry to get where we want to go that we don't enjoy the journey along the way, but take the necessary steps to build our arsenal and build ourselves up to achieve the big goal and then have longevity after that.
You talked about building that arsenal. I think for me, and in a lot of the circles that I've found myself in the business world, in the fitness world, at the gym, a lot of the guys that I choose to spend my time with are very focused. They're very driven. They're ambitious, and they're trying to push the limitations, oftentimes of, physically and financially are really two of like these core fundamentals that I see everybody's kind of working on themselves on. But it's funny because like before, having the opportunity to meet you, I don't think I ever really thought, I guess I kind of just tacked the mentality and mindset side.
Right.
I almost like just tethered it to the other things. I have my business mindset. I have my in the gym, like I'm a different creature there,
Right,
kind of thing. Yeah. But since we've met and been talking to you about some of these things, and the way that you describe, mental performance, it is really becoming more of a differentiated thing for me. It's like the way, because by tethering it to those other things, to business, to my going to the gym and fitness, the problem is I was never isolating the mindset side or, the mental performance side. I was never isolating it and doing purposeful work on it alone, because I thought that, and it's true, like it will improve as a byproduct of, pursuing things in the gym, in business, etc. But if I actually take the time to like visit it and isolate it and do some activities that are, it's like I'm not trying to grow muscle right now. I'm trying to like hone in my mental performance.
Right.
But I think the biggest struggle for me is, well, one, slowly coming to that realization. But now what I'm trying to figure out is what are some practices that I can do? What are some ways that I can look to isolate and improve that don't necessarily entail me having it increase as a byproduct?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I tell athletes all the time is like mental performance is something that you need to work on every day. It's not something that you need to sit down and you don't need to have a worksheet or homework every single day. But if you sit there and think about your process or your goals, or, okay, how am I going to be present today? Like, I guess my niche as far as mental performance, some people do players coming back from injury, players like under pressure, like how to handle being under pressure, players not being present. Like my focus majority of the time is, one, your goals, but the process on getting there. So everything that comes with that. So being present, having a focal point, having a routine that resets you, having a self-talk regimen that keeps you going, right? So it's kind of number one thing I would say, like, put your goals somewhere where you could see it every single day. Now, while those might be your outcome goals, I would say you need to reverse engineer and have what I call your microscope goals and write those down too, because those are going to be the goals that you work on every single day. And if you solely focus on your microscope goals, those will equal or result your big goals that you wrote down. But
what would be some like examples of those?
All right. So for instance, what's one of your goals that you want to achieve in, I don't know, like a big goal?
I'd love to weigh 240 one day.
Okay. So
I'd love to weigh more.
And you weigh what now?
200.
So you want to weigh 240. That's it. But anything specific, muscle mass?
I'd like to be, I don't know exactly where I'd want to be as far as body fat percentage, but I'd like to maintain a low body fat percentage.
Right.
I want to keep it lean.
It's fine. I mean, if you don't have it, it's fine. But like 240, that's a big goal.
Yep.
right? It's going to take time to get there. So just reverse engineering that. What do you need to eat to get there? So breaking down your macros. This is good. So your macros, right? What is to gain weight? Do you know like what do you need to eat?
I actually don't right now.
Right. So, but I'm saying like, so if you get your macros, then you get your workout routine regimen. How many times you need to work out per week? What are you working out those days? Are you hydrating? So water is a key in that too. And then like any other supplements that you're taking. So from there, we would break down your macros. We would break down your workout routine regimen, and then just strictly focus on that. And that's it. Like you could write down 240, and that's fine. That's going to be a motivating drive for you because you want to see that every day. Like that's the end goal. That's the end goal. Okay, now what do I need to do to get there?
Right. Okay.
Right. One thing that, like for me, I'm very visual, so I wrote down all my goals, and I not only wrote them down. This is even when I didn't have a scholarship. I made a poster board of what I wanted to accomplish. So, in the middle of the board, every year was a national championship trophy. It was, I had NFL logo on there. I had all conference. I had pictures of my family just for motivating factors. I had a 40-yard dash printed out because I want to run a fast 40. I had, what else? Pictures of the beach because I was, BFE, Alabama, so I didn't see the beach. But just things I could see, like goals I wanted to see. But in my head, it like brought me back to present because I knew I needed to reverse engineer all that, and focus on what I need to get done today. So it's just like taking little steps day by day to get there. And I knew that time was coming. We made it to the national championship my senior year. We lost to North Dakota State. I got shot at the NFL. I didn't really run the fast 40. I'm not flying. Clearly, I'm not in the NFL still. But I ran fast enough, to have a shot, clearly, or to get there. But being able to see that and have your mind, think about that every day. Because if you see something on, visually, you're going to think about it. It's marketing. You know this, right? You have a marketing business. But that's only going to propel you forward into reaching your goal, but it just takes you to reverse engineer that.
Man, I'm hearing through this and thinking to myself, I need to be taking notes.
No, it's
I'm
fun.
because it's so strange, and this is why, man, this world needs people doing what it is that you're leaning into with this mental performance stuff. You're just talking through this stuff it's second nature. I had my, my vision board kind of thing or my mission board, whatever. And I thought through my goals. Sure, I could list off a bunch of goals that I have and that I've had for years now. Some I've accomplished, some I'm working towards. But I don't know. I can't remember the last time I wrote my goals out. I used to do it daily.
Right.
I remember. It's I get so caught up in the doing, and now, honestly, I feel like it's weird. But as you're talking through that process, I'm literally thinking in my own head. I'm I don't remember the last time I picked my head up and looked where I was.
Well, it's everybody has a routine, whether they know it or not. It's just, you don't think about it. It just becomes second nature because it makes you comfortable. So I'm real big on routine as well because if you focus on your routine, then it makes you comfortable. Pretty much whatever happens to you throughout that day, if something throws you off, just go back to what you know, right? If you have that routine of making your bed, of going to the gym in the morning, of brushing your teeth, that's going to help make your day better just like that without you even knowing. But a lot of people, it's just unlocking your mind to be able to focus on your routine or being present or refocusing to help make you that much better rather than just so many people just go through the day they're walking around in Grand Theft Auto or something, But yeah, that's one thing I focus on too is developing a routine, focus on that routine. Now, if something happens to you, how do you refocus? What brings you back? What do you say to yourself? It's so much, and everything doesn't work for everybody.
Yep.
And for every athlete too. Every athlete's different. Everybody thinks differently, which is I think is pretty special. But a lot of it is just sitting down and like unlocking what you already have in your mind that we don't talk about on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's just having that willingness to like open up the chest and look around.
Right. Now, and like you're going to have great days. You're going to have days where you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need anything. Like I'm rolling. But you're also going to have bad days just like any other person.
So I'm sure. I mean, I'm dying to know. I'm sure the audience is dying to know. Like, what's your routine? I'm sure it's pretty.
I don't wake up as early as what people think. I wake up pretty early. So 5 o'clock, I'm up. Immediately go to the coffee pot, turn it on, get in the shower, get dressed, make coffee, go to one of the facilities I work at. Leave the facility, go to the sauna. I sit in the sauna, and that's pretty much the only time I put my phone down throughout the day where I don't have to worry about people texting me or work. I just sit there and focus on my breathing. And that's the most I'm present throughout the day. And I listen to my headphones, whatever, but it's not like rap or anything. It's like very gentle music. And for like 20 to 30 minutes, I just sit in the sauna. And I'm claustrophobic.
Really?
I'm very claustrophobic. So like it took me a while to get used to that. And this is just a habit that I picked up this year, is going to the sauna every morning. But after that, I go back home, shower again. I have to shower in the morning, or like first thing in the morning, because I'm old and walking around like a grandpa. But I take 3 showers a day, bro. It's crazy. Go back home, cook, eat, get dressed for work, go to work. And the good thing about my job is like I don't know what's going to happen each day, because some people might need help with something, but I always go back to my routine. So like whatever grounds me in the morning makes me feel comfortable for what's going to happen ahead. Afternoons, I go to the other gym, then I go to soccer. If I have to meet with athletes, I meet with the athletes around lunchtime, and then work out in the afternoons, probably about 5:30. Go home and cook, chill with the wife, and then start the day over.
What is like? Do you find it's really important to you and integral to your routine to have that shut off switch time? Like you said, 5:30. Somewhere around there. You go home to the wife, or maybe you're going and hanging with some friends or whatever. You're watching football.
Right.
Like you kind of have that. Are you pretty regimented on like, okay, well, at a certain time, I shut away?
Yeah, I'm very big on like what's important right now. Like if somebody texts my phone around like 5 o'clock about something that needs to happen at work, or if it can be fixed tomorrow, then I do not worry about it then. I used to not be like that. I used to be like, all right, and then scramble and try to, fix it real quick, or like open my laptop, and I don't do that anymore. It's pretty much that's tomorrow's problem, because what I'm doing right now is the most important thing.
Just focusing on being present kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to have that on-off switch too, because you want to be good at what you do. You want to be the best. So you're like, yeah, I need to put in the extra hours. But there's a time and a place for everything, I feel like. And so if something can be fixed the next day, or if it's not going to like impact the next couple of hours or impact your life, just let it go.
Do you feel how long you've been married for?
A year in September. So this almost a year.
How has that played a role and changed some of the ways that you think about that shut off, or like whatever it is? Because I get caught up oftentimes. I mean, right now I'm working, going to the gym, and then going back to work.
Right.
And then I'm going to bed, for the most part. But I oftentimes get to thinking sometimes to myself, like, I almost have like this level of appreciation for, a lot of people might look at my work schedule and say like, that's just way too much, like whatever. But for me, I really do appreciate it and look at it as like a privilege that I may not always have, because one day, hopefully, I will have, a family of my own, or I may have a significant other, or I may have children, things that are very important to me and a part of my purpose in life, I believe. And I know that when I reach that point, I may not be able to pull the 16 to 14-hour days,
right.
16-hour days all the time.
Right. No, I mean, I've been having the same routine for a long time. So, like, making time is important. And that, I mean, especially in the afternoons or at night, because both busy, but it hasn't really affected like the way I change myself. But I would say I don't like to sit around and do nothing. It's hard for me just to sit and stop. So like on the weekends, I like to go have fun. I like to get out, because my routine during the week is the same thing every day, to where when the weekend comes and I feel like I have some type of freedom where I can relax, my relaxation to me doesn't mean sit at home, because sitting at home is a part of my regimen during the week. So when the weekend comes, I'm trying to go get on the water. I'm trying to go hang out with friends, go golfing, do something that I don't normally do, because that's what makes me happy and brings me joy. Now, I have a different energy level than other people on the weekend, or like even throughout the week. I can go, and my philosophy is like I'll stop when I drop. Yep. But it is important to have that time. I feel like just at the end of the night or whatever, just to shut everything off, relax, watch Netflix. I'm watching Fast and Furious right now, rewatching all of them.
Oh, nice.
So
classics. You're also, this is an observation I've made as well, is you are very much like go, go, go. There's a reason you and I hit it off. Like,
Right.
You're just constant action, get stuff done, putting in work. We're talking about, you're doing the podcast now too, which we'll talk about too. But you're go, 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 but you have a very like calm and stoic like personality. From like most guys around you might think, that you're just, you're very, everything's cool. Like I feel like if I saw you even, in your work environment with complete chaos,
right.
I'm willing to bet right now that you're probably the same like level-headed nature that you are.
Yeah.
Like just
I walk in there and they're like, "Oh, he's pissed off today." But I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm very it might be hard to believe, like I'm not an extrovert at all. I'm an introvert. By chance, like I don't like to argue. I'm not a yeller. I'm not that guy that's going to be the rah-rah. I was never the rah-rah football player. Like, I'll talk junk to you, but I wasn't the guy standing up in front of the whole team, like, hyping you up. I let my actions do the talking, which is the same now. So, while, like, if you and I are friends and we go have a good time, like, I'll have all the energy in the world. I'll talk to you, we'll have a good time, but I try not to show like the stress that I go through, or I don't know. I try to keep everything under the surface as far as my emotions. So especially at work, I can't let other people know I'm stressed out or anything, because there's going to be a lot of people that try to get on your skin. You just can't let it happen.
That separates. To me, that's what makes there. I think that there really are people in this world that are set up to be, like, they have an innate talent, skill sets, and knowledge on how to be a leader, how to lead others. And there's other people that aren't necessarily leaders, but that doesn't make them any less important. They just fall into a different position, into a different category. And you said you were a walk-on for the football team and ended up being the team captain, or being a team captain.
So we walk out in the national championship in 2015, 2016. And I'm a team captain standing across from Carson Wentz, who went like second or third in the NFL draft that year. Like, I mean, granted, he's not on the team now, but I mean, hell of a player. He lit us up as far as beating us, but I mean, just to say like, go from being a walk-on to doing that is something that like nobody can take away from me. And that's one thing too. I'm very humble. I don't like to talk about myself, but to be able to say that is always going to be like a big moment for me, even though other people might not care. It's something that I'm proud of myself for.
There's zero coincidence whatsoever. One, where like your position in your work life right now, as well as, you know, you rising up and becoming, you know, going from being a walk-on to being a team captain. Like, that's just, you have traits, you have something that other people don't have. And you said, you know, I choose not to get emotional or if, you know, there are emotions, of course, but not to necessarily show them to everyone, but to keep a level head for the sake of the unit.
Right.
I mean, there's no coincidence in the fact that you achieved those things. And
right.
I'm sure that you will continue to achieve things and continue to lead people because you have, like I said, it's like shit's hitting the fan, you know, and people are losing their minds. In complete chaos, people look to the most level-headed one in the room every time.
Right.
Like, okay, it doesn't mean that you're not having that oh shit thought in your head. It's just, it's all about how you process it. And I think like that introverted nature that you're describing as well is probably like, you know, you process things better potentially on your own versus talking to a crowd of people that you're not really all that close with, kind of thing. Or maybe you confide in very few like close friends about certain things, or family, or whatever it may be. I think it's I think all men, young men especially, like really should be looking to, it's hard, but like controlling your emotions type things. But I mean, not everybody's built like you are.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't built like this, but it just took a lot of patience. Like I had my own struggles. Like anxiety still today, anxiety is a struggle for me, but everybody doesn't see that. Everybody goes through something. It's just how you work to get over it, or get through it, I should say, rather than get over it. That's going to help you out in the long run.
So on kind of our final note here, really, let's talk about this new venture you've got going on. Let's talk about the Beyond the Arena podcast. You know, what drove you to want to do it, and then like what's coming with it? Like what's kind of the grand vision? I'm sure have a vision board up somewhere with something to do with this podcast.
I mean, it's crazy. I just want to say it's crazy because like how I got connected with you through Lav, but like you're like this podcast right here is like you're using this platform to help other people who are listening, right? To hopefully grow like their success in entrepreneurship, or right? And so like take that and just put it into the sports world for me, for the mental performance. It's strictly mental performance, because if you can fix your mental performance, then I guarantee that your physical performance is going to follow. I don't know why I started a podcast. I felt like I kept on hearing mental performance or mental health being tossed around over and over and over, and there's some people who talk about it, and there's a retweet here and there, a couple likes, and then after that, nobody talks about it anymore. So for me, the podcast came as a tool for me to get athletes to talk about what they go through, for other people to sit down and listen. Because while so-and-so is sitting in the stands watching their favorite player, they might not know their favorite player that has anxiety, or has depression, or had depression, or has certain types of struggles that they might be going through. or other athletes be watching their favorite player, or thinking that, oh, I'm the only person on my team right now that I have anxiety, I can't sleep at night, and so I just sit on the edge of my bed. Or I have performance anxiety, I have struggles with confidence. There's other athletes out there that need to hear that either another athlete is struggling with something that you are and it needs to be talked about, or this is how I'm successful because of my mental performance and this is how I got there. And that could help another athlete or help another person. So it's not only things that they go through successfully or things that they struggle with inside the arena, but also outside of the arena that I feel like people need to talk about that's not being talked about enough. Not just with superstars and the Antonio Browns, but the everyday football player that you might think has no issues whatsoever.
Where do you see yourself? We've had some conversations about, your plans to, go to certain places, take this kind of thing abroad. Like, do you have kind of a vision for like what this podcast format is going to look like? Because the whole Beyond the Arena thing, I've told you before, you have just a killer brand,
right.
Like your logo's sick. It's like, I'm jealous. But you have this really, really sick brand and you're just coming out of nowhere into a niche space that isn't being heavily talked about. Like my business brain is going, man. Right. I'm like, listen, man, you're in the right place at the right time with the right skill set. If you move your pieces properly and you set them up in the right places, like this just could be, you have the opportunity, I think, to crush this ball out of the park. And so I guess I want to hear more about like, what's your vision for the format of it? Because, you kind of have you have your Joe Rogans where it's like he has a studio, guys come to him, they talk, they do that kind of table talk, whatever. It's very like off the cuff. You got, guys like me that are, I guess, kind of just doing more living room kind of podcast shit or whatever. I'll take it other places. But what do you envision when, like, visually, when it comes to what people are going to be able to expect with some of your content?
Visually, I want to get coaches, athletes, people who have been around sports, like that people know that they look up to come on the podcast. I want to go to them. I want to travel the country. I want to go to like your favorite college football program, talk to your favorite coach. I want to go to like whether it's on the field, whether it could be anywhere. But I want to take this thing across the country for athletes and people to talk about mental performance and make this the biggest mental performance podcast out there. And where that goes from there, I don't know. I want to, hopefully gain some clientele for myself. I want to be, I'd be lying if I say I don't want that. Right. Because the goal for me before all this was to be a certified mental performance consultant. And that's still the goal. So if I could not only get people to come on here and talk about their mental performance, but also take my talents and help them if they want it, or people listening to reach out to me and be like, hey, Spencer, I would like to, I would like help for your service. Like, I need your services to help my performance. Whether you're an athlete or not, like, I want to help people at the end of the day. And I feel like that's why I'm here on this earth. I've had so many other opportunities to take so many other jobs, and I'm just like, I can't do that because I'm not, no offense to other people who work hard in blue collar jobs or whatever. I'm not trying to be mediocre. Yep. Like, everybody has that one thing in their life that makes them passionate. And I never thought podcasting would be it, but I feel like this is something that can turn into not only a podcast, but a message for people across the sports world.
And, especially for my audience listening and kind of my kind of people, I think this would be a really good clarifying message for you and what you're going to be doing. So when when are you framed up to get the certification thing? Is that what you're waiting on to start coaching clients?
So right now, I mean, I'm at Coastal right now doing like finishing my hours. So that's part of my hours because I'm a volunteer coach there. I have about 6 more sessions I need to turn in for me working with athletes. After that, I take my certification test, and then I'm good to go. I'll have my own services. If I want to do my own LLC, I can. If I get contracted out to a business or a sports team, I can do so and just kind of freelance it. It just depends on what people want my services and what I offer.
So I guess my clarifying question then, that's good to know, is not just athletes, right? So you're
right. So business
owners,
right.
entrepreneurs.
There's so many people, businesses or corporations that they go through mental performance training as well. Just like athletes, you got to perform at a high level. Now, we have goals as a company, we have goals as individuals or entrepreneurs. How do we get there? So same things that apply inside the arena apply outside of the arena. Yeah. So hence the name. And my roommate, the linebacker, he actually helped me come up with the name.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll definitely be in touch when you start doing the coaching stuff.
Yeah.
One, I could use some work, but we'll talk more off the record for sure. But I'm thinking about
need some help marketing.
Yeah, yeah. We'll work something out. But it's been really great having you on. I have one final question that I feel like could be a tough one. When it comes to the podcast and kind of having athletes, like opening up these conversations to help others, do you think that there is any deficit for athletes revealing certain vulnerabilities while they're still in the midst of their career?
That's what I'm trying to get over right now. I want athletes to be vulnerable on here. And that's the reason why I feel like mental performance isn't talked about enough, because everybody's afraid to talk about what they go through. I mean, we could sit here all day and I could talk about what I went through, and just, it's very humbling for me to do that. But for an athlete to come on here and say, hey, this is what I struggle with, but this is why I'm still successful. Now, this is what I'm working on to get over it. That could either, one, save somebody's life, that could save somebody's career, that could better somebody. And so before you start rolling, when I bring athletes on here in the studio, is try to get them to kind of warm up and be like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Don't be afraid to open up about it. Does it happen all the time? No, because everybody's not ready to talk about what they go through because they think it's going to hinder their career, or people are going to look at them differently. But it's something that definitely, as people, we need to talk about, not only as athletes, but to help make each other better, not only just ourselves.
Do you think it could potentially equally be like a fear of, I don't know, I guess I'll frame it up from the business side so I can kind of relate it more to myself and speak better on it. But if someone, let's say, had a podcast where business owners come on and they talk about what they, these mental struggles that they have, there's plenty in that game too. All I would be able to think about, even if I was like comfortable, let's say, talking about that stuff, which I'm generally not that kind of person. But even if I was, I would be like, what happens if I say, like, I'm vulnerable here and my competition is listening and they use it against me, kind of thing?
I guarantee your competition is going through the same thing. But that's the thing, too. If your competition is going to use that against you, your competition's focused on you. They're not focused on getting them better.
I like that.
They're comparing themselves to,
without even knowing it, the past version of you.
Blades marketing is struggling with this. This is how we, it's, you might struggle with something, but like personally knowing you now, it's like, I know if you're struggling with something, that just means you're going to work that much harder to get to where you want to go. Is it hard to open up and say like, there's a problem? Yeah, bro. I have a problem opening up. Like, I'm an introvert.
Yeah,
I have
same.
a problem opening up and saying that there's something wrong with me in everyday life. But at the same time, if I could use that to help other people and talk about something that people are afraid to talk about, especially in sports, then so be it. Like, then be the first one to do it. Because right now there's nobody doing what I feel like I'm doing.
There's a lot of sports podcasts out there, and you know what it is like, and I got so much respect for you, man. Like, the fact that you're in this space that's, well, it's a great, I think it's got this immense amount of potential. That's why I really am looking forward to watching you lean into it. But it's also going to be such a challenge.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, you're blatantly not. If you are afraid of the challenge, you won't show it anyways. Right. But
it's going to be tough. It's definitely going to be a process.
You're almost carving out a space, really.
Trying to.
Because it's not just mental performance. Like, yeah, there are mental performance podcasts. Like, I've watched a lot of like them on like the business side of things. But is there one that is like breaking into kind of that sports world and talking to athletes in that kind of a way and in that kind of a framework? I think that's going to be really cool, and I look forward to watching.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, man. It's good having you on. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. We'll get Troy in, or we'll go smoke cigars with Dean.
We'll get that midnight podcast going.
Some whiskey and cigar smoke. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you all in the next episode. Oh, and go follow Beyond the Arena on all platforms right now.